Hello and welcome to Unacademy. First, let me wish everyone a very happy Independence Day. Today marks a historic day, not just because it's India's 79th Independence Day, but because Prime Minister Modi just delivered his longest ever Independence Day speech from the Red Fort. At 103 minutes, this wasn't just a speech, it was a comprehensive blueprint for India's future. I have analyzed every major announcement that was made by the Prime Minister, including every policy shift and every strategic signal that PM Modi sent out from the ramparts of the Red Fort. From Operation Sindoor to the new employment schemes, from GST reforms to national security missions, we are going to break down all of it today. So grab your notebook, hit that like button, and let's dive into what could be one of the most consequential Independence Day addresses in recent memory. Before we jump into the analysis, let's set the stage. This was PM Modi's 12th consecutive Independence Day speech from the Red Fort, breaking Indira Gandhi's record and making him second only to Nehru's 17 consecutive addresses. But more than the numbers, what stood out was the tone of Prime Minister Modi. This wasn't just a ceremonial address. It was a combative, confident, and comprehensive roadmap for India's next phase of development. The Prime Minister covered everything from national security to economic reforms, from technological self reliance to social welfare. The timing of this was very significant as well. With global uncertainties, trade tensions with major powers, and internal challenges around employment and economic growth, PM Modi used this platform to send clear messages both domestically and internationally. But before we begin, I have an important announcement. Unacademy has extended the freedom offer based on popular demand. For a limited time period, you can still enroll for our online courses at the lowest ever subscription fee of 17,999 for 12 months, along with up to 12 months of free extension. So those interested, check out the link in the description and enter the code IAS English to avail the Independence Day offer. Now let's come back to our discussion and start with what was arguably the most striking part of the speech. This was Prime Minister Modi's strong stance on national security and his detailed discussion of Operation Sindoor. For the sake of context, Operation Sindoor was launched by India in May 2025 as India's response to the horrific Pahalgam terror attack on April 22nd, where 26 innocent people were slaughtered by Pakistan-sponsored terrorists who targeted their victims based on their religion. What made Operation Sindoor unprecedented was its scale and execution. PM Modi, while delivering the Independence Day speech, did not mince his words. He said, "Our brave soldiers punished the enemy beyond their imagination, and we entered hundreds of kilometers into enemy territory and razed terrorist headquarters to the ground." Now, this wasn't typical diplomatic language. This was a clear message that India has established what he called as a new normal in dealing with cross-border terrorism. The significance here is huge. PM Modi essentially announced that India will no longer distinguish between terrorists and those who harbor them. The armed forces have been given a complete freedom to decide the timing, the strategy, and the targets for any future retaliation. But perhaps the biggest announcement was Mission Sudarshan Chakra, India's ambitious plan to create a comprehensive security shield by 2035. Drawing inspiration from Lord Krishna's mythological weapon, PM Modi outlined a defense system that sounds remarkably similar to Israel's Iron Dome. The mission aims to protect critical infrastructure such as hospitals, railway stations, religious sites, and strategic installations through indigenous air defense technology. What's interesting is PM Modi's emphasis on Make in India solutions. He specifically mentioned that under Mission Sudarshan Chakra, the air defense systems will be researched and developed and manufactured entirely within India. This is significant for two reasons. First, It signals India's growing confidence in its defense capabilities. And second, it's a direct response to evolving warfare tactics and the need for multi-layered security in an increasingly complex threat environment. Then PM Modi's message to Pakistan was perhaps the strongest we have heard from any Indian Prime Minister from the Red Fort. He declared that India will not tolerate Pakistan's nuclear blackmail anymore, and that blood and water cannot flow together, which was a clear reference to the suspension of the Indus Water Treaty. This wasn't just tough talk by the PM. It represented a fundamental shift in India's approach towards Pakistan. By linking the Indus Water Treaty to cross border terrorism, PM Modi has essentially weaponized water diplomacy. The message is very clear. If Pakistan continues to sponsor terrorism, it cannot expect India to continue sharing river waters. Then, moving from security to economics, PM Modi unveiled several major initiatives that could reshape India's economic landscape. The biggest economic announcement was the launch of a new massive employment scheme, which is a renewed version of the employment linked incentive scheme. This scheme has been named as the Pradhan Mantri Viksit Bharat Rozgar Yojana with a budget of 1 lakh crores, and it aims to create 3.5 crore jobs over 2 years. And here's how it works. Young people getting their first job in the private sector will receive 15,000 rupees directly from the government as an incentive. This isn't just a handout. It's structured as an incentive with payments after 6 and 12 months of continuous employment, plus mandatory financial literacy training as well. For the employers, the government will provide up to 3,000 rupees per month for up to 2 years for each additional employee they hire, provided if they meet certain conditions. And manufacturing companies will get extended benefits for up to 4 years. This is a significant bet on job creation at a time when unemployment, especially amongst the youth, remains a major challenge. The question is whether this will actually create productive employment or just subsidize existing hiring plans. PM Modi also promised next generation GST reforms by Diwali. He called it a double Diwali gift for the people. While details are still sketchy, the promise is a substantial tax relief on essential goods and support for MSMEs. This comes after 8 years of GST implementation, and PM Modi acknowledged it's time for a review. A high-powered committee is already working on rate rationalization and reducing the number of tax slabs. The challenge will be balancing revenue needs with the promise of lower taxes. And here's where Modi's Atmanirbhar Bharat vision gets really interesting. He announced that exploration is underway at over 1,200 sites for critical minerals under the National Critical Minerals Mission. This is hugely significant because critical minerals such as lithium, cobalt, rare earth elements, they are absolutely essential for everything from electric vehicles to renewable energy to even defense equipment. Currently, China dominates this supply chain, and India's push for self-reliance here could be a game changer. Prime Minister Modi also announced the National Deep Water Exploration Mission to tap into ocean resources for oil and gas. Combined with the push for nuclear energy expansion, he mentioned that 10 new reactors are operational with plans to increase capacity tenfold by 2047, and this represents our comprehensive energy security strategy. One of the most concrete announcements was about semiconductors. Prime Minister Modi confidently stated that by the end of this year, made in India semiconductor chips would be available in the market. This might seem like a small detail, but it's actually quite massive. Semiconductors are the backbone of modern technology, and the global chip shortage during COVID-19 pandemic, it showed how vulnerable global supply chains can be. India has been trying very hard to establish a semiconductor ecosystem for years, and if India delivers on this promise, it could be a major breakthrough. The broader point about technological self-reliance is very crucial. Prime Minister Modi challenged Indian scientists and engineers to develop indigenous jet engines for fighter jets, comparing it how India developed vaccines during COVID-19 and created UPI for digital payments. Because in the space of jet engines, we are reliant on foreign vendors, particularly in the United States. Now, this isn't just about reducing imports. It's about building strategic autonomy in critical technologies. The success or failure of these initiatives will significantly impact India's position in the global technology hierarchy. Then, coming to social initiatives and social welfare, PM Modi's speech had a strong focus on social issues, with focus on several positive initiatives. But however, Prime Minister's political rhetoric on sensitive issues raised serious concerns as well. On the positive side, PM Modi highlighted that 2 crore rural women have become Lakpati Didis, earning over 1 lakh rupees annually through self-help groups or SHGs. He specifically mentioned initiatives like Namo Drone Didi that have given rural women new identities and economic opportunities. Now, this represents one of the most successful aspects of PM Modi's governance, the empowerment of women through economic participation. The numbers are impressive and the impact on rural economies could be transformational. But however, PM Modi also announced a high-powered demography mission to tackle what he called a conspiracy to change India's demography. He warned about infiltrators or illegal migrants who are snatching away the jobs of Indian youth and even targeting our sisters and daughters. Now, this was purely political rhetoric, and let me tell you why it is quite problematic. According to experts as well, these statements are problematic on multiple levels. First, it plays into divisive narratives about immigration and demographic change. Second, it conflates legitimate concerns about illegal migration with broader communal tensions. While border security is indeed important, framing demographic change as a national security threat, it could risk fueling social tensions. The government needs to be careful that this mission doesn't become a tool for targeting vulnerable communities. Then let's look at agriculture, rural economy, and farmers' interests. PM Modi spent considerable time on these issues, positioning himself as a protector of Indian farmers. He declared that he stands like a wall to protect our farmers and fishermen from any unfriendly policies, which is a clear reference to ongoing tariff wars and trade negotiations with the United States and other developed countries. This is significant because trade deals they often require agricultural market access. And Prime Minister Modi's strong stance suggests that India won't compromise on agricultural protection, even if it means tougher trade negotiations with our bilateral trading partners. Then PM Modi stated that the suspension of Indus Water Treaty was framed not just as a security issue aimed at Pakistan, but also as a farmers' rights issue. Because PM Modi argued that Indian waters, especially from the Indus River, was irrigating enemy fields as well, while our own farmers remained thirsty. He also highlighted India's achievements in food production, India being the number 1 global producer, such as in the case of milk, pulses, and fruits. India is also the number 2 producer of fish, rice, wheat, and vegetables. So the message from the PM was very clear that India has achieved food security through its farmers' hard work, and we won't let external pressures undermine their success. Throughout the speech, PM Modi repeated and he returned back to the central theme of building a Viksit Bharat, a developed India by 2047, when India celebrates its 100 years of independence. Now, this isn't just about economic development. PM Modi outlined a vision that encompasses energy independence through renewable energy, nuclear power, and domestic resource exploration, technological self-reliance in critical sectors like semiconductors, defense, and space, and social development through women empowerment and inclusive growth, and as well as infrastructure development and urban planning with focus on cultural preservation and promotion of Indian civilizational values. This would be the true definition of a developed India. PM Modi also touched upon India's space program, and he mentioned the preparations which are underway for the Gaganyaan human spaceflight mission and plans for a national space station as well. With over 300 space startups, India is positioning itself as a major space economy. But let's be realistic about the challenges as well. Achieving developed nation status by 2047 requires sustained GDP growth of 8 to 9% annually. We would also need massive infrastructure investments, skill development for hundreds of millions of workers, and resolution of complex social and environmental challenges. The question is whether the announcements made today, from employment schemes to technological missions, are they sufficient to achieve these ambitious goals to make India a Viksit Bharat? Now let's step back and critically analyze what we heard today. PM Modi presented a coherent long-term vision for India's development across multiple sectors. The emphasis on self-reliance isn't just rhetoric. It's backed by concrete initiatives in defense, technology, energy, and manufacturing. The tone of the speech reflected a confident India that's willing to take tough decisions on national security and economic policy. The strong stance on Pakistan and the ambitious technological goals show a country that believes in its capabilities. Unlike many political speeches that focus on single issues, this speech by PM Modi addressed and covered the full spectrum of governance, from national security to social welfare, from economic policy to cultural identity. The employment scheme, GST reforms, and even the proposed technological missions and legal reforms, they aren't just promises. They have clear timelines, budgets, and implementation mechanisms. But of course, there are some areas of concern as well, especially the language of the PM around demographic change and infiltrators is quite concerning. While border security is a legitimate concern, but framing demographic issues in such stark terms, it could risk communal polarization. Also, many of the announced economic and welfare initiatives, they are extremely ambitious. And if you look at India's track record on large-scale implementation, it's quite mixed. And there's a risk of over-promising and under-delivering. While the vision is inspiring, the economic challenges are enormous. Creating 3.5 crore jobs, achieving energy independence, and building technological self-reliance requires immense resources and capabilities, which India is still building and developing. While women empowerment was highlighted, there was less focus on other marginalized communities such as Dalits, tribal communities, and the LGBTQ community. But PM Modi's speech must also be understood in the global context of rising geopolitical tensions and economic uncertainties. Many of the initiatives, from critical minerals to semiconductors to defense technology, they are clearly aimed at reducing dependency on China. This is part of a broader global trend of supply chain diversification and technological decoupling. The strong stance on protecting farmers and the emphasis on domestic manufacturing suggests that India is preparing for a more protectionist global trade environment, especially with potential tariff wars on the horizon. While not explicitly mentioned, many of PM Modi's announcements, they align with India's partnerships in forums like the Quad and initiatives like Indo-Pacific Economic Framework. The focus on critical minerals and technology development, it fits well with allied strategies to counter Chinese dominance. But as we wrap up this analysis, let's identify the key questions that the government will need to answer in the coming months and years. First, let's look at the economic questions. Question number one, job quality. Will the new employment scheme create productive, sustainable jobs or just temporary employment? Question number two, fiscal impact. How will the government fund these massive schemes while maintaining fiscal discipline? And question number three, GST implementation. Can the promised tax reforms be implemented without significantly impacting government revenues? Now let's look at the strategic decisions and the plans that were announced and raise some key questions regarding this. Question number one, on defense capabilities. Can India actually develop and deploy advanced defense systems like the Sudarshan Chakra mission by 2035? Question number two, On Pakistan, will the tough stance on Pakistan lead to better behavior on Pakistan's part or escalate tensions further? And question number 3, technological independence. Is India's push for self-reliance realistic given the complexity of modern technology supply chains? Now let's look at the social questions that we should be raising towards the government. Question number 1 about the demographic mission. How will this mission be implemented without targeting legitimate minorities or the vulnerable communities? Question number 2, inclusive growth. Will the benefits of these initiatives reach all sections of the society or primarily benefit only the urban middle class? And question number 3, social harmony. Can economic development proceed alongside the divisive rhetoric on demographic change? Now, let's also talk about the final conclusion and what should be the final takeaway from this historic Independence Day address by Prime Minister Modi. So today, what we have discussed is something that could be very relevant for both our prelims and mains exam. That is why I would like to give you a way forward as part of our conclusion. On one hand, we witnessed a confident, assertive India articulating a comprehensive vision for its future. PM Modi's speech reflected a country that has moved beyond the post-colonial mindset and is ready to claim its place as a major global power. The emphasis on self-reliance isn't just about reducing imports, it's about building strategic autonomy in an uncertain world. From semiconductors to critical minerals, from defense technology to energy security, India is preparing for a more fragmented, competitive global order. The concrete announcements regarding the employment scheme, GST reforms, defense missions, they show a government that's thinking beyond the electoral cycles and investing in the long-term capabilities of India. But we also heard concerning rhetoric about demographic change and infiltrators that could deepen social divisions. So the challenge for PM Modi and his government will be to pursue their development agenda while maintaining India's pluralistic fabric. The success or failure of the initiatives announced today will significantly shape India's trajectory over the next decade. If PM Modi can deliver on even half of what has been promised, India will indeed be well on its way to become a developed nation by 2047. If not, today's speech might be remembered as another example of political overpromise and under-delivery. The next few years will tell us which narrative proves correct. But one thing is clear today, it was marked by a defining speech by the Prime Minister, and it marks a defining moment in India's post-independence journey. A moment when the country's leadership laid out its most ambitious vision yet for the future. So what do you think? Are PM Modi's announcements realistic and achievable? Or are they overly ambitious promises that may not be delivered? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more such in-depth analysis. Until next time, Jai Hind.